GOP leadership trying to kick the can down the road on the issue, promising to bring it up next month. But party conservatives want to see movement on immigration now. President Trump also making it clear he wants Congress to act, saying he will seek full funding for his long-promised border wall as soon as possible. House Majority Whip Steve Scalise will join us later on in the program on this. Right now, there is more reaction, though, from the White House. Joining us right now is Kellyanne Conway, counselor to the president. Kellyanne, always a pleasure. Thanks so much for joining us.
My pleasure, Maria. Thank you.
Is the White House at odds with the House leadership on immigration going into the midterms?
This president could not be more clear that he wants that border wall. He wants funding for it. He was very disappointed in that omnibus package that was insufficient. Secretary Nielsen said something similar in the diplomatic room when the president came forward and said, I'm going to sign this, but don't ever send something like this to me again because I won't sign it. And the reason he signed it, you'll remember, is because it included over $700 billion for our military, their first pay raise in many years, $4 million for school safety, $4 billion for school safety, $6 billion for opioids, a lot of good things in there. But that border wall needs to be funded. At the same time, this president has been a friend to farmers from day one, and he will continue to be. So I think much of this, Maria, is a function of Washington, that they still have not accommodated and assimilated themselves into a system run by a president who thinks you can do many different things at once. You can take care of the farm bill, you can take care of immigration, get that border wall built. This president talks about keeping out illegal immigrants and and separately folks who come here to do harm. He's against catch and release. He obviously is very much against the savages in the MS-13 gangs. However, he's also talked very crisply and definitively about the poison that's coming over our border. And this wall would serve many different functions, including keeping out that poison.
So is it the Freedom Caucus that is pushing to get this on the table before the midterms? And is it the leadership in the House that's basically saying, well, let's kick it until after the midterms?
If they want the president's help and direction on this, they'll recognize that he thinks that we need to have started constructing that wall. He obviously commissioned, or somebody commissioned, the prototypes, and people have already started in different sections of the border making changes there. And so this president, again, happy that the Congress says they'll take this up again next month, but none of it can be a substitute for what he sees as a #1 issue. He promised it on the campaign trail. He was elected on it when others were all, gooey and chewy about amnesty and about no border wall.
I understand.
This needs to get done.
My point is, you're going into an election in November, and obviously a lot of people are worried that the Republicans will lose seats. It's not a very good plan to be fighting over one of the president's priorities going into the midterm elections. But this is where we find ourselves, isn't it?
Then they ought to meet that priority. It's a priority that is supported by many people across this country. We need to be a sovereign nation that has physical borders. It's very simple. And it's very simple. You've seen the numbers increasing because we have these crazy programs like catch and release. You heard the president himself on Tuesday, Maria, in a speech to the peace officers say that he believes in catch and release. You catch them and you release them to the country they came from.
Right. Well, we're going to be talking with Congressman Steve Scalise on this issue, so we'll get more into this and whether or not this is the appropriate plan of action going into the midterms. I got to get into trade and China, Kellyanne, because it looks like the Chinese are bending to the president's wishes here and agreeing to buy more stuff, whether it's agricultural products or natural gas or oil, from the U.S. My issue is the national security issue. The president was very firm that he was going to use the 301 part of the Trade Act, and that is to protect this country's technology, to protect the crown jewels of this country. We know that China steals intellectual property, transfers technology to Chinese companies, and obviously will not really open up markets to American companies. What does this agreement have to do with that? Because these are the real issues that are important to business and the economy.
Right, and all that is on the table, Maria. In 2 short weeks, we had the American delegation go to Beijing. We've had the Chinese delegation come here to the White House just this past week. They met, obviously, with the major players in the trade in China space, but also they met with the President of the United States himself. And this would not have happened but for Donald Trump as president, because it never did happen. The president has said very firmly, the $500 billion deficit is crazy. I think you see some early productive commitments or conversations to reduce that deficit and increase significantly the purchases. But this is more than a buying mission. this also has to do with the 301s. Ambassador Lighthizer has been very, very upfront about how the tech transfers, the stealing of our innovation, our intellectual property, really the stealing of our future innovation as well.
That's right.
That has to stop. But without this president's leadership, none of this would be happening.
You're absolutely right. And I totally agree that the president put the pressure campaign on China, and he's winning on this. They are going to buy more stuff from us. However, the Chinese want this 301 issue, the national security issue, off the table. Is the president going to give in to that? That would be a huge deal.
Well, the president has made very clear in all of these negotiations and all of his public statements, practically, Maria, that he takes the national security piece very seriously. Obviously, he's doing many things around the globe and here at home to bolster the world's security, our national security. Look what he's doing in North Korea, the alliances that he's been able to firm up with Japan, with China, ironically, on that issue. And so this is a president who's been talking about national security, the tech transfers, and I don't want to get ahead of any announcement that will be made, but I can guarantee to you, and you know this from speaking to others who are in those talks, that that everything is on the table, and all of that is being discussed in Beijing and here in the United States.
Is the meeting with Kim Jong-un still on the table? Where does that stand, Kellyanne?
We're preparing for a June 12th summit in Singapore, where this president will continue to do what he's been doing for months now, since he got here, really, which is to try to end 70 years of war between North Korea and South Korea, and to try to denuclearize the Korean Peninsula, which helps everyone. Obviously, North Korea had a problem this week with South Korea. We're monitoring that. But we've received no specific information that would make us think that we should stand down at this moment on forging ahead with that June 12th summit. But this president has made clear from the beginning, Maria, and I'll repeat it on his behalf this morning. If it happens, that's fantastic. And if it doesn't happen because certain conditions aren't in place or the time is not right, that's okay too. Look at what Secretary of State Pompeo has been able to do in 2 trips over to North Korea in what, 7 or 8 weeks, not even. And 3 Americans are back on American soil with their families because of this president and Secretary of State Pompeo's leadership and action.
Have the trade issues bled into the issues around North Korea? The president made a remark last week basically saying, I don't know, maybe China spoke with the head of North Korea. Maybe that's why they're backing out. In other words, this pushback of the Chinese trying to get the 301 and the national security issues off the table with regard to any agreement, is that getting in the way of its dealings with North Korea?
Well, I wouldn't conflate the two, and I happen to know that's not what the president meant in that comment with respect to China.
Okay. Let me move on to the Department of Justice and the FBI investigation, Kellyanne. We're going to talk with Devin Nunes coming up, the chairman of the Intel Committee. He's also investigating China, so I'll get into that with him. But we want to talk with him about his investigation into the FBI and the DOJ and their handling of the investigation into Trump collusion narrative, as well as Hillary Clinton's investigation. The president tweeted this yesterday. If the FBI or the DOJ was infiltrating a campaign for the benefit of another campaign, that is a really big deal. Adding his support to pushes by the House Intelligence Committee to release the documents. And the president is saying that he was spied on. Can you tell us what went on?
All I know is what I see, and the president is absolutely within his rights to tweet about this. He tweeted more about it just this morning, Maria, and essentially the president is saying what we're all saying, which is we're happy to never talk about the 2016 election again. Winning solves a lot of problems. Winning completes many sentences. But you can't have it both ways. Those who want to investigate Russia collusion, which the president said is a witch hunt, there's no evidence of it, we're into year 2 of this. You can't then say, oh, we can never talk about the Hillary campaign again and what happened there. The president's saying, well, how did they handle an investigation where 33,000 emails just disappeared, where the Clinton Foundation was getting over $100 million in contributions, including from countries, frankly, that don't respect women and girls very much. Did Haiti ever get its money, by the way? Good question. So the president is saying, if you're going to investigate all this, investigate all of it. We have a right to know transparently what happened with respect to both campaigns and how those issues were handled. We also know, Maria, at this point, something that we did not know before this investigation, which is Jim Comey and Andrew McCabe's FBI at the highest levels, not the tens of thousands of rank and file men and women who are there to do their jobs diligently and respectably. They were running at the top echelon a very porous and poorly run organization when it comes to handling the Hillary Clinton investigation. Read Rod Rosenstein's memo from May 9th or so of last year. It is scathing in terms of Jim Comey and I suppose some others in his senior management. It was textbook what you don't do when things like this occur. Preening for the cameras, overtaking the DOJ, Attorney General Lynch's judgment and supplanting it with his own. So we have a right to know all this. I'm very happy, at least, that these documents are coming forward now because there seemed to have been a logjam for quite a while. And we seem to be learning more as a public. So let's learn more as a public.
All right, we're going to talk with Devin Nunes right after this about that and about what he says was an investigation launched into the Trump campaign, the Trump administration, based on zero intelligence.
And Maria, allow me, if I may, I'm sorry,
quick.
allow me just to say, since I was the campaign manager for the winning part of the campaign, and I've never, to this moment that I can recall, met Carter Page or George Papadopoulos. I've seen them on TV. I've seen pictures of them on TV. Carter Page has said it on a different network. He's never met me. I think that's important because when you're talking about how we won and what happened once some significant changes were made in leadership in the campaign, and let's remember, it's Donald Trump and Mike Pence. They were our two greatest assets on this campaign. They won this election fairly and squarely. I think it's important just to note that because people, again, are saying the campaign as if every phase of that was the same. I will tell you, I'll look you in America in the eye. There's no reason to have been talking to anybody, frankly, from Russia, from these other countries, trying to do anything other than beat Hillary Clinton fairly and squarely. I look no further than Hillary Clinton to figure out how to beat Hillary Clinton.
Exactly. Kellyanne, good to have you on the program this morning.
Thank you,
very
Maria.
much. Kellyanne Conway joining us. A long-awaited report on the Justice Department's investigation into Hillary Clinton has Washington on edge this weekend. The president is